So Norway, of course, and I just want to take this opportunity. I think Norway did a brilliant job in, I would say, honestly, first of all, rescuing the Arctic Council and then being able to maintain it in the way you did. And as I said to the official who was responsible for content, Martin, if there was a diplomatic prize in the Arctic community, you definitely would receive it.
Thank you.
So as you are now moving forward and free of the burden on the kind of diplomatic role you have to play as the chair country of the Arctic Council, can you share, both of you, from your different perspective with us here, what are the one or two top priorities of Norway now when you look towards the new situation in the Arctic? You've seen here on the stage today, it's quite remarkable for us who remember Arctic discussions years back, the emphasis on huge military security expenditure, other grand investments, President Trump ordering 11 icebreakers, and so on and so forth. The decision by the Danes of this new security investment. There's a long list of actions that have been declared just in the recent weeks, which would have been monumental news in the Arctic just a few years ago. So can you start by sharing with us how, as Norway moves forward in this new situation, what are the top priorities, if you want to start?
Well, if I was to choose only two priorities, and well, then of course I would have to focus on the big picture. One is soft diplomacy. The other is sharp power. On the soft diplomacy, thank you so much for mentioning the work that many people have put into making sure that the Arctic Council survives. Yeah. That is important because it's the linchpin of Arctic cooperation, representing the interest of the people living in the Arctic as its core purpose. That's the first, so making sure that continues to deliver for the future. And the second is to strengthen the alliance of like-minded countries and the strength of NATO. And NATO is stronger, it is more capable, there is more Nordic in NATO, more NATO in the Nordic, and it's good for everybody. But these are the two overall priorities, but I have 5 pillars in our new High North strategy that I would very much love to present.
Okay, Andreas, you want to follow?
No, I totally agree with Maria. We, from the Ministry of Defense, we focus on international law in the Arctic, but we're also, for us, it's important to have deterrence in the Arctic. NATO is more vital now in the Arctic than in many years. So yeah, that's one of our main focuses. But it's Maria's presenting some.
Okay. These are very diplomatic answers, by the way. So let us go back to the hall and let's put the lights up. And in the interest of the audience, if you are ready with your questions, give us a little bit more light in the hall so we can see where people are who are putting up their hands.
And Chairman,
yeah.
If you allow,
yeah.
I would love to present our High North policy. And in the meantime, people can make themselves ready to ask questions.
Yeah.
But I will be so. This is such an important audience, and this is such an important topic.
Sure.
So I would invite myself up there and present it. Thank you so much. And dear all, Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, friends of the Arctic and Arctic friends. Geography defines who we are, and that is why Andreas and I have brought this map with us, as you see on this big screen, of the Arctic region. And as you can see from this map, Norway is Arctic. Our history, our identity, our culture, and our security are inseparable from our geography. We know that the Arctic is not empty, that it is not just a wilderness, that it is home. Home to people, to families, to workers, to youth with dreams. The north is not the edge of Norway, it is the heart. But it is a heart that feels the changing beat and rhythm of geopolitics. Europe's security has been shattered and upended by Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine. Arctic exceptionalism is questioned. Some are questioning whether it is over. And climate change is hitting harder, faster, and closer in the Arctic region than anywhere else on the planet. The Norwegian High North is an area of highest strategic importance to my government. Because the North, our security, sustainability, and community is intertwined. And this, friends, is the backdrop for Norway's new High North strategy. Our strategy is comprehensive. It is about security, defense, preparedness, but most of all, first and foremost, it is about people. It is about people who live in the Arctic, who see their futures in the Arctic, and who we want to feel safe in the Arctic. So our strategy consists of 5 pillars. First is sovereignty and influence. The High North is fundamental to Norway's security. We are NATO's maritime eyes and ears in our region. And we guard the outer allied border and Schengen. And freedom of action, to us, is not a theory. It is a responsibility that we take daily. In the Arctic, knowledge is our compass. It builds influence. We value the international scientific cooperation that connects so many nations. And from the Norwegian side, we are also increasing the effort. 18 of Norway's leading research institutions are joining in the Arctic Ocean 2050 program. And this is one of our key contributions to the International Polar Year. The second pillar is a total defense, because security in the north is not carried by armed forces alone. It rests on the strength of the whole society, on business, on municipalities, volunteers and citizens, on resilient communities where people feel safe, connected, and confident in their future. We will strengthen our defense and deepen our cooperation with our Nordic friends and allies, with the United States, with Canada, and with our European partners. Together, we will safeguard the stability, defend international law, and uphold the rules-based world order through the Arctic Council and beyond. The third pillar is an attractive local community. Because a safe north is a living north, and a living north strengthens all of Norway. National security begins with people, and people who build, protect, and who create life in the Arctic are at the core of this. Our goal is clear, my friends. Northern Norway must remain a region where people choose to live, to work, and to stay. That is why we invest in homes and in schools, and in culture and in sports, so families can thrive, young people can stay, and so that new talent can find their way to the Arctic. The fourth pillar is infrastructure that builds communities. Roads, ports, energy systems, digital networks. These are more than just tools of transport and communication. They are the backbone of resilience. They connect people, they build preparedness, and they create opportunities. And the fifth and final pillar is business development that creates values, because economy is also about security. Jobs and innovation give strength and stability. They give people a reason to stay in the north and a future to believe in. So, dear all, this is not merely a strategy for ministries and institutions. This is a strategy for people, for families in Finnmark, for workers in Nordland, for students in Tromsø, for everyone who calls the high north of Norway their home. It is also a strategy for our allies and partners, for NATO, for Europe, for the international community. And let me conclude with this. Our message is simple. Norway will be present. Norway will be prepared.
May I point out to you?
And Norway will be a reliable partner.
Just a moment.
In
You have already hijacked the rostrum for more than 7 minutes.
And with this, I say thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. On a lighter note, this is why we in Iceland have, for more than 1,000 years, have problem with the Norwegian.
Where our prime ministers work very well together.
No. The ground rules were you would take questions. This was not a session for speeches. So it was a dialogue that the two of you would have with the audience. It was not planned that there would be delivered a statement on behalf. But okay, you took the initiative, you did that.
It was indeed planned to have 2 speeches.
It was not, in all fairness, it was not a part of the deal.
But now we're looking at the audience, which is beautiful. I'm looking forward to questions.
Well, with all due respect also, it's enough you hijack the rostrum, you're not taking charge of running the questions. So, let's open the floor for any kind of questions. Yes, we have one there.
Hi, dear state secretaries. My name is Andrea, and I am a master's student at UIT. I study law of the sea. And a question for you, Maria. In March this year, you went to UIT yourself and asked different students from different branches and studies what they want and what they need in order to stay in the high north. What were some of their responses? How do the governments plan to make students want to stay in Tromsø or Alta or north? Thank you.
First and foremost, through lowering the threshold of which the students can feel that they contribute to the community around them, that they see the opportunities and the businesses around them, that we create trainee programs, public and privately financed, that see the potential of the young experts and students with different backgrounds, that we make the community inspiring for them to live with, both in terms of what they do for a living, but also what they do in their spare time, that it is possible to travel between places, all of this and a lot more. And culture, of course, is an important C in terms of cooperating, building resilient societies, and attracting young talent, such as yourself.
Okay, yes, there's one there in the middle of the hall.
Hello, I'm Rocky Weitz. I'm director of the Maritime Studies program at Tufts University's Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. I wanted to ask about bringing lessons from the Indo-Pacific to the Arctic. Japan has been a real leader in framing the challenges of increased geopolitical competition in the Indo-Pacific as advocating for the free and open Indo-Pacific. And could Norway maybe advocate for a free and open Arctic Ocean?
Well, it's a challenging question because as the polar ice melts, already vulnerable Arctic ecosystems become more exposed. So it's a double-edged sword. Yes, resources and new sailing routes are opening up, but in terms of safety, both for the people on board the ships and safety for the vulnerable ecosystems, the risk of operating there, it might not be met in terms of the benefits and the economic gain from it. And then, of course, you need to consider what is the purpose. But responsible activity and transportation and sailing that is in accordance with the polar code, super, super important. But I don't know, Andreas.
Yeah, I totally agree on that as well. And I think we see that the Euro-Atlantic and the Indo-Pacific is more interconnected now than ever before. And then with the war in Ukraine and Russia is actually it's the neighbor of Japan and Norway. So a lot of common security issues, and we are working quite closely with Japan on international law and law of the sea. So
Can I, Andreas, follow this up with, as we have seen already, and we all know there's now a new emphasis on Arctic security, and on Saturday we will have the new chairman of NATO military committee speaking here. With respect to the evolution of Arctic security, what is the Norwegian position on the role of individual countries versus the potential role of NATO in Arctic security? And I'm asking this question also because terminology is important and it can be misleading. Arctic security up in Alaska and so on is taken care of by the US military. Nobody is, to my knowledge, inviting NATO to come and take a part in that. As we heard here, Canadian security is primarily taken care of by NATO. We just heard Denmark announce a major security investment. So in this new situation, maybe there isn't an answer to my question, but how within the discussion in Norway on defense and security and so on, do you on one hand see the role of individual, even member states of NATO, as they are, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Kingdom of Denmark, and the role of NATO as an alliance?
Well, that's a good question. Well, for us, it's NATO is the alliance that we were was one of the founders for, and so were Iceland. So yeah, NATO is, and I think the debate going on in NATO these days are more focused on Arctic issues now than just some years ago, and the reason why is the Russian invasion in Ukraine, right? So, but we are working very closely with NATO in the Arctic, but of course we also have our special relationship with the US and the UK, and we have good bilateral dialogues with countries being in the Arctic. But the one thing doesn't rule out the other. It's kind of the same thing here in the Iceland.
You want to add something?
Yes, I of course agree with everything my good colleague is saying, but it's a combination of sovereign states and other states' respect for state sovereignty. And that is the core principle of international law, of what the UN is founded upon. What states do in their sovereign capacity is their choice, right? But then you have alliances of sovereign states committing to cooperate based on shared values and the willingness to protect those shared values. And you need to see those two in connection. It's not that NATO as an organization in itself wants to suggest, oh, let's have more activity or presence in the Arctic. It's up to the sovereign states, member states, and allies in NATO, like Canada and Norway and the other, except from, of course, Russia in the Arctic, that decide NATO's presence. And like Andreas and I have pointed to, there is more NATO in Norden, in the Arctic, and vice versa. And that is important for both states' sovereignty and for alliances in a time where multilateral cooperation is crumbling. And
I just would like to add, we are focusing on what gives deterrence in the Arctic, and be it NATO or bilateral. It's the combination for us that is the important issue, right?
Okay, so yes, this is here in the middle.
Hi, my name is Hanna Tyle, and I'm a journalist from Finland. Speaking of civil defense up in northern Norway, you say that you want more people to move there. For that, we need industries and jobs up there, right? But then there's also the Sami community who wants to keep their land, who don't want mines or wind power or power grids and things like that. And there are conflicts related to these issues. How do you see that they can be solved?
Thank you for these important questions. We have to be honest that there are things done in the past that were wrong. And that in the future we need to learn from our mistakes and respect both the traditional culture, knowledge, history and the indigenous communities as we build trust and bridges to the future that we want to see in resilient, competitive Arctic communities. And it is indeed challenging, but the first step is to gather around the table, talk about what is difficult, what is possible, what are the threats to the way we have lived our lives, but also what future do we want to see for our children, for our country as a whole, and have that as a point of departure.
Okay, do we have more questions here? Yes, here. Can you bring the microphone? Put up here, yeah.
Yeah, 2 microphones. Thank you. My name is Andreas. I'm a member of the Sami Parliamentarian Council, and I wanted to ask kind of the same question the one asked before me, but I can elaborate on that. And that is that now is NATO also widened to Sweden and Finland, and of course the Sami nation lives across 4 national states, also Russia. So my question is, and I'm very happy that both state secretaries mentioned international law should be the foundation of everything we do. And my question is, will also indigenous people's rights and human rights as a part of the international law system be just as important as your need for security? Because right now there is no dialogue. And that's very bad. So my question is, will you strengthen the dialogue, especially regarding NATO and the use of land? Because the security needs can't smash down the human rights and indigenous people's rights.
There was here in the same row also a question, yes. If you can bring the microphone there, then we will take answers to these 2 questions. Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Bo Torbjörnek. I'm a reporter at Dagens Nyheter in Sweden. And I'm wondering, how will Norway strengthen its defense in Finnmark? And also I'm wondering, is there any dialogue to reduce tensions with Russia in the Barents Sea?
Thank you for both of those questions. To the first question, I would have to say yes and yes, both in terms of human rights and international law mattering also when we plan for increased allied presence in the Arctic with the physical infrastructure that is needed and that will be a reality. If we don't learn from things we should have done differently in history, then we're moving backwards when we need to be cooperating, seeing eye to eye, looking at the traditional and scientific knowledge and communities side by side. So yes, of course, there's a prerequisite, and yes, we need to do even more of better teamwork to cooperate and strengthen that dialogue. Andreas?
Yeah, thank you. When it comes to Finnmark, Norway, or the Parliament in Norway, launched their defense pledge last year, and we are spending a lot of more money in Norway in the next 12 years, and Finnmark is definitely something we are looking at. And this year, in August, we established a new Finnmark brigade. So that's one answer to your question. And when it comes to the Barents Sea, there's we have reduced our dialogue with Russia, but there's some dialogues going on. Intense, search and rescue is one of them. Fisheries as well. But at a minimum at the moment, at least from the defense side.
There is no political dialogue with Russia, and for obvious reasons. It is waging an illegal war on a sovereign nation, a brutal one that has upended the European security landscape, and it has partly, in the initial phase, paralyzed the cooperation multilaterally in several organizations. And Arctic Council has been mentioned several times here, but we have to look politics and diplomacy on a technical level a little bit and separate, because there is no political dialogue with Russia, no, but there is cooperation in the working groups on a technical level in the framework of the Arctic Council, and that is important, and that has to cooperate within this no business as usual, because there cannot be business as usual, but it is also an important part of keeping the region stable.
So, since our time is soon up, let me also use the opportunity to ask you, because you have talked a lot about sovereignty, territorial integrity, the values, and so on. Of course, we have two options with respect to President Trump's declaration about Greenland. I mean, we can decide to ignore it and wait to see whether it's serious or not, or whether it was just some PR stunt, which is possible, by the way. But soon after he took office, the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister of Norway traveled to Washington and had a very successful meeting, according to President Trump. So, whether we like it or not, that statement was made by the new President of the United States. We can choose, as I did during Trump's first term, to say, let's distinguish between what I call the noise and what he actually does. But are you willing to make some comments in the light of all the principles that you have now listed and which we agree on? Are we going to simply pretend that nothing happened with this statement? Or are we going to, for the first time in modern history of the Nordic country, we have had a statement by a major military power describing an intention to gain, in whatever form they define it, control over a Nordic territory. So, my question is this: what was the message of the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister of Norway when they were in Washington?
Well, coming back to the point of the importance of respecting state sovereignty and international law, our message, which was stated both in international, national media and in the Oval Office, was that we stand by the side of the Kingdom of Denmark in solidarity and respect with their sovereignty. And as your brilliant Prime Minister said earlier in this plenary session today, we don't agree on everything, even with the countries we are allied with. We agree on most things, but most importantly, it is important to also, for close, important, good friends, to have to dare to speak our minds, to dare to say what we believe to be wrong. And we have done so, both in closed meetings and in open media.
But it was a good meeting, and then from our side, we view that the Americans are quite on the same page as us when it comes to Arctic issues as well. And we homeland defense in the U.S. starts in the Arctic. So that's one of the main messages in that meeting, and it was a good and fruitful meeting for Norway and the U.S.
Well, as you can see, our time is up. So thank you very much for coming here and presenting the case of Norway. And thank the audience for putting the question. And we will now invite what we call in English the Prime Minister of the Faroe Islands to the stage, and then he will take some questions from you. But thank you again.
Thank you.